Coming up, a Sad Styles production. Get into it.
Hot D-pads. This week we got 11 players per side as we take to the pitch to play a lovely old game. What?
No, not pitch. Football. American football. John Madden.
Is he Chelsea? Or
for God's sakes. NFL John Madden.
Oh, John Madden's football from 1990 on the Sega Genesis this week on the Retrograde podcast.
Welcome to the Retrograde
podcast, where we remind you what you used to love and whether or not you still should.
My name's Andrew Bascom, and with me as always is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Grid-Aaronworth.
Grid-Aaronworth, very good.
Baby.
I am so excited. Football season is around the corner, and we're going to play John Madden Football today.
We are playing John Madden's American Football. You know, it actually was called John Madden's American Football in Europe when it was released.
It would have to be.
It would have to be.
There would
right?
be refunds otherwise.
I would be so confused. First of all, who is this guy? He does not look like he could play football.
John Madden's possessive football? No, thank you. Not in my country, which is England, I assume.
Possessive football?
Yeah, like
because John Madden. I thought you meant like he's possessing the football, which is, as a coach, what he wanted to do this whole time.
And funny enough, in American football, he's like, great, possess the football, fantastic.
Yes, exactly.
When you're playing football, you know, soccer as we call it, you cannot possess the football.
No, not with your hands.
You can't hold that.
Although there is a stat for possession.
There is. That's true.
Yeah. And then they have to get the Exorcist and the tubular bells start playing. It's just a whole ordeal. We don't an ordained ordeal, actually, the way it is. Well, looking. Listen, if you're new to this podcast, first of all, thanks for listening. Typically, what we do is take
thanks
a look
for
back
licking
at the games that we used to play when we were kids. Usually it's something we had an affinity towards one way or another. We rate and review the game out of 4 bits based on our memory of the game. Then we actually take a break, play the game, and rate and review the game once again out of 4 bits based on how the game holds up in the modern day against the likes of modern games. This week we are focused on the one and only John Madden Football.
John Madden Football. Bam!
How much are we going to do?
I'm going to try not to. I swear to God, I'm going to try not to.
Okay.
Tough acting, tenactin.
Oh, you did it, Andrew.
No,
you
I'm
just
sorry.
said you weren't going to do it, and you did it like right away.
I miss him. That's what it is, Mikey.
I miss
the
him
guy.
too. I miss him. He's one of my, I would say, like my biggest father figure in my life. Probably.
In your life?
Yeah.
Next to John Madden.
Yeah, next to one obvious man. God. Yep. My father upstairs would be number 2.
Your secret family that you live in the attic.
Yes, exactly. And then my secret family in the basement.
Yeah, the albinos. And then you have John Madden.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
It was a sad day when he passed away, a year ago?
I think it's a year ago.
Something like that?
Yes, it's in the last year.
And because of that, we've got this year's release of Madden, which is why we're doing John Madden Football, the original Genesis release, which this game is kind of like Tetris in the sense that it's sort of hard to pick what the original release of the game was, because it had different versions of it. But for a home console release, this is the first version of John Madden's Football. But this year for Madden, the release of Madden 23 is a John Madden kind of focused version, right?
Yes,
What's the deal with that?
It's like John Madden is like the cover, like forever, there was never cover athletes, right? It was John Madden on the box, like drawing up X's and O's and being like, you know, the receiver wants to go over here, and you know, like
with a quote from him that says, "If it's not 11 per side, it's not football." That was literally a quote on the box.
That's weird. When would it not? Oh, because it was less players on the field,
they
right?
originally, even after he agreed on, which we'll get into, because the creation of this game and the development of it is pretty impressive, I think, whatever had to happen. We've talked about this on the podcast before, where there has to be a level of ignorance towards the gaming industry sometimes to initiate change. And that happened here. John Madden's just like, I'm not giving you my name unless it's 11 per side and unless this can be used almost as like a teaching mechanism.
Well, you know, it's funny about that too, because, you know, and forgive us, we've done versions of Madden in the past.
I think we did Madden 2004.
If I repeat any stories that I did from the last one, that's on you.
That's on you,
that's
baby.
on you guys. Come
it's
on,
worth
relax.
repeating. It's worth repeating. But you should also go back and play Madden 2004 for the bonus mode, the Michael Vick dog simulator.
Yeah, I knew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's great. It's great. Hey, look, it's Pokemon. What more do you want?
It's in the game.
It's in the game.
Is that John Madden also changed the way that that football was broadcast on television, right? He was one of the first. He wasn't the first color commentator, but he was the first one that tried to explain the game to people instead of like, good throw. You know what I mean?
I think it's commentator of color, Andrew. I think that's what they prefer.
Yes, absolutely. Very good. And that's why they went to John Madden. So he retired very early as a coach, very successful coach. He won the Super Bowl with the Raiders. And then he's he's under 40 and he's done. And he's like, I'm done. He was also one of the youngest.
He said, bam, I'm done. Not bam, I'm done.
He's like, Tenarton. And then, but
there it is, the impression's back.
No, I can't help it. He would go to colleges and teach classes in football.
UC Berkeley.
And he would try and explain to people, going like, if I explain it like this, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, the offensive line, no one even knew or cared what they did. They just stood there and blocked people. It's like, well, no, there's a lot going on. You got to swing this, got to do that. And so him taking that and explaining it on television to the average viewer, it makes a lot of sense to take it to a medium in which football had never really been fully represented and coming from him.
Oh, so that's interesting. So did he teach that class not to spread awareness necessarily of what football was
spread
about?
Awareness, 30 people at a time.
30 people at a time. It was so that he, what a jip of a class.
Yeah.
When you think about it.
I'm not
you're paying for the class so that he can learn how to broadcast better.
Yeah, heads up. A lot of star linebackers probably passed their classes because they went to John Madden's Football.
Yes,
101.
exactly.
He's like, I know this. This is great.
It was actually the name of the course, the one at UC Berkeley at least, the one he was teaching when he was first approached by Trip Hawkins, eventual creator of Electronic Arts, to do a game like this, to sign off on a football game. The name of the class he was teaching was Football for Fans.
Oh.
So it does make sense, this story of wanting to make sure that this visibility and this awareness of what an offensive line is.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how much of an impact one person had on the way we consume football as fans now?
Absolutely. It is not solely back to him, but a huge part of football and the way that you watch it now, even through Madden, the video game, is back to John Madden.
100%.
It's crazy.
100%. I mean, if he never lent his name to this, who knows how great it could have been the same game, but someone else's name, who knows? But what they didn't expect, and we will get into this, but I want to talk some more topical gaming stuff in a little bit. But what they didn't expect was he would want a full hand in the development of the game, not just signing his name off. He's like, no. Me signing my name off is step one. Step two is I need to make sure the product is good enough to warrant having my name on it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I just love the idea that Kelly Slater bursts into the office of he's like, this surfing needs to be real. And they're like, oh, crap. Fuck.
I wonder how much impact Tony Hawk had on the first Tony Hawk game.
See, the problem is I actually believe probably a lot.
Yeah.
I believe he is like John Madden. He shows up and he's like, nah, it doesn't feel like that.
Right.
But then again, it also... I don't know, how much did Tiger Woods have involved in Tiger Woods golf? But it's because there's so many over-the-top elements in those two games that I'm not sure how much they were involved, because John Madden Football at that time felt like real football. Oh, my God.
It did, and that was the whole purpose of it. But before we get into it, because everything you bring up, I'm just like, there's so much about the development of this game that relates to it. It's a fascinating... I remember one of the first times we did this on the podcast where we really went in-depth into... a crazy story about the development of a game was with Tetris. That was episode 200. One of my favorite episodes that we've done. And the more we do that, the more we dig into some of these games and focus less on the specific entry of the game and more on the development and the story behind it, the more great stories there are in the gaming industry. And this is definitely one of them. And I'm excited to get into it. But before then, Andrew, we mentioned that we're doing this episode based on John Madden Football because Madden 23 is, I think if you pre-order, you can actually get early access as early as August 15th. But so it's already out at this point of listening. And I think the general release is August 19th. Okay. So you may still have some time before then. But Andrew, you've been a supporter of the John Madden franchise for a very long time.
Very long time.
Mainly because you like the way EA does things. I
love EA. I'm a huge EA
stan.
Huge
EA stan. Yeah. You call it a stan because instead of an A, it's an EA.
Oh, yeah.
So you call it a steen. You're a steen.
I'm a steen.
You used to play hockey with the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then you won a cup with the St. Louis Blues. Yeah. Alex Steen.
I think there was a wasn't there a nude photo thing with him?
Of Alex Steen?
Yeah, I think so. I'm thinking of another Toronto Maple Leaf that got traded. Never mind. Okay. All right. Yeah, look up naked hockey players.
Joffrey Lupul?
Nah, I don't think so. Okay. Well, maybe, possibly. Now let's just name former Leafs. I don't know.
Alexei Ponikarovsky.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Very good. McGillney deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
100%.
Honestly. But yes, I don't remember your question. I was a big fan of the Madden franchise.
And are you getting this year's version?
Yes, I am.
Because you stayed away. You might not want to.
I know. I stayed away for the last couple of years, and it was a big deal for me. It's really hard. And I've played Madden maybe more than any other game. Franchise in my life. Yeah. I've played so much Madden in my life. I was a huge football fan. I still am. Mm-hmm. And
I call you a football stan.
Yeah, football stan.
Football stan.
Football stan was my neighbor. Yeah. And so it's so tough to stay away, but I had to because I couldn't endorse what they were doing to that franchise and lazily just putting out whatever crap and recycled version of last year's game was. And so I stayed away. And then this year, they brought me back in because they promised they changed everything.
As they do. They just say that every so often.
They can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
I'm an idiot.
And so you wouldn't have had a chance to play it yet.
Yeah.
Are you excited, though?
I am so excited.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. I'm a huge Buffalo Bills fan. The Buffalo Bills are going to be the best team rated in the league coming out in the beginning of the season.
Oh, like in Madden, they're the highest rated team?
Well, they're the favorite to win the Super Bowl.
Ooh.
And as if you follow football, if you don't, the only way that I can explain the Buffalo Bills is they're a garbage franchise from a garbage town. And...
where Alex McGillney
used to play. Yeah, go McGillney.
And he used to say, "Go McKill me," because I'm playing in Buffalo.
They're famously a bad franchise that have lost forever, and then now all of a sudden, they're famous because they went to 4 straight Super Bowls, which is remarkable. That is so hard to do. You know what's also
without
hard to
winning
do?
A single one of them.
Lose every single one of them. That's also equally tough to do. If you flipped a coin, it's 50-50. So that's the early 90s, and then they've just been bad forever, and now all of a sudden they're going to be good again, and it's there is a little bit of punching down where I'm like, they're finally good. I'm going to buy this team.
Yes.
I'm going to buy this game, so I can play as a team and just beat the hell out of it.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm excited for you. I hope it's good. I want it to be good. There was a very famous point.
The Bills or the game?
Both, actually.
Okay, thank you very much.
I do for your sanity and your sake.
Yes.
Because I need a co-host on this podcast, and I believe you'll kill yourself if they don't.
Check in around February, guys. I will be either the happiest or saddest person in the world. It'll be great.
I am excited. I want it to do well. Fans of football video games will remember there was the heyday of sports games was when both EA and 2K were developing games. It was the original NFL 2K that came out for the Dreamcast was heads and shoulders above everything else. And because there were 2 licenses for NFL games, they had to compete with one another. And what eventually happened is the NFL said, probably because EA threw way more money at them, we're only licensing one video game company to make an NFL game now. And from then, I think you can chart a downwards trajectory of overall quality in the Madden games because they have no competition.
No, why should
And this is why capitalism is so effective at getting the best out of us.
Well, isn't there a thing about the free market? Shouldn't we open it up because then they would the best product would survive?
Well, that's the funny thing because it's people will use the argument. It's you need competition, and with competition, it's well, no, but capitalism allowed them to spend enough money to be the only game in town, which. I mean, you would think that's a form of antitrust, but don't ask me. I'm
don't
not an
ask
expert.
me.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
It's also the most staunch conservative. My friends are huge football fans, and I'm the NFL's pretty much socialist. It's not-for-profit organization that rewards the weakest of every season by giving them the best picks.
True.
So just saying.
That's why I don't watch.
Yeah, exactly. No, thank you. And kneeling. No, thank
Head
you.
injuries, fine.
Great.
We pay them millions of dollars. Let's hit them in the head. Well, let's take off the helmets.
Why are they wearing helmets at all? Go back to the leather single bar.
The single bar or the leather buckets. Yeah.
I'm just a huge George Clooney fan.
Speaking of, I'm a
John Krasinski?
John Krasinski fan. I was going to say Jim Krasinski, but that's just my mind losing track of reality, I think, because
honestly, it's getting harder and harder.
It's getting harder and harder. Sometimes I wake up from as Rob Ford would say, drunken stupor, and all of a sudden I'm face to face in this recording studio with a stuffed animal.
Really?
And I'm like, that's not Andrew.
And our chemistry is sizzling.
It's still just as good. It's still just as good. The unreleased episodes on our Patreon are the stuffed animal tapes.
The ones where there's just silence and then you laughing is going to be truly horrifying to listen to.
I call them the stuffed animal tapes because I had to tape over the holes that I cut in them so I could fuck my stuffed animals.
Oh my God. Well, what are we
Andrew,
13 minutes in? This is a pretty good start.
Speaking of capitalism.
Yeah.
News. Most of the medias are owned by one. No, I'm kidding. Overwatch has announced that they're getting rid of paid loot boxes.
Whoa.
Yeah,
and this is a recap to kind of last week's conversation we had as well.
Activision Blizzard with Diablo Immortal, which I like to call Diablo Immoral.
Very good.
Thanks very much.
Very good.
That was something I thought of the other week and literally had to Google it to see if anyone else had said it.
I don't know if it's that creative that no one's ever said that.
It's been said.
Yeah, 100%.
It's been said. But then again, everything has been said. Like I was once rewatching the Lord of the Rings movies, and I was just high enough that I thought to myself, James Gandalf Feeney as a conglomeration of James Gandolfini and Gandalf and Mr. Feeney from Boy Meets World. And the internet had already done that.
This is like the whole thing about the monkeys, if you got no time, could write Shakespeare. The internet is that. Yes. We are all the monkeys. And we are writing James Gandolfini
over and over again, repeating ourselves. That's like the moment in the movie when someone like they're on I can't think of a specific movie that's like this, but like they're on a search for something, they're on a journey, and they get to the end of the journey. Lord of the Rings, yeah. No, but they realize that they're just repeating a cycle that someone else had already gotten there, and this it's like I've finished the journey, James Gandolfini, and then all of a sudden someone else had already done that on the internet, repeating over and over again.
That's why I'm kind of obsessed with Mount Everest, and not even like the Mount Everest from like the first time that anyone ever climbed it, Sir Edmund Hillary, is like more the thing of like green boots.
How mad are you that I didn't congratulate you for knowing that person's name?
Honestly, I kind of forget his Sherpa's name, and now I'm mad at myself. No, don't worry. I'll beat myself up. It's all good. Is that like the green boots guy, which is like one of the people that died in the 70s, is like a famous person that everyone uses it now
as a waypoint?
His corpse as a waypoint. But then also now I'm kind of obsessed with, speaking of capitalism, but is like the tourism side of it. There's just like hundreds of people waiting in line to get up the tallest mountain in the world.
Yeah.
It
reminds me of the episode of Atlanta where everyone's lining up to take a picture next to a cardboard cutout of Drake for their Instagram stories. It's like that kind of thing is great to me. No, but so Blizzard is doing away after this Anniversary Remix Volume 3 or whatever it is that's currently ongoing as of the release of this episode in the middle to end of August. They're getting rid of paid loot boxes, and this will move into Overwatch 2 as well. Essentially, what it seems like they're going to do is announce a model that's more geared towards being able to purchase individual skins, which I love. I think that's great. Now, I mean, it depends.
I'm processing this information.
So you can instead of opening up loot boxes in hopes that you get a specific skin. You just pay for that skin. Now here's the thing. When Overwatch first came out, and I was playing that game even more obsessively than I do now.
It's hard to believe.
Very hard to believe. I would treat myself sometimes. Every time there was like an event, like the Halloween event, I would buy a $50 loot box.
Oh, wow.
Because I wasn't playing many other games, so I wasn't buying many other games. And I'm like, okay, I have money to spend on games.
Sure.
I'm going to do this, and I would hope to get one of my favorite Halloween skins. Sometimes you'd only get like 2 unique ones from that whole pack or something. So rather than paying $50 for an assortment of loot boxes, why not just let me pay $50 to get the 2 or 3 skins that I actually want? I would rather have that.
Yeah, no, and I think it's fine because once again, it doesn't present any competitive advantage.
Right.
It's just superficial. It's just vanity. And it's funny enough, it's weird vanity where you can't even see yourself.
Yes.
You're just, like, I'm wearing it. I promise.
Yes, exactly.
I'm fine with that because I think also speaking about last week, we talked about the bronze of the wizard and the black opal and the, all this kind of different types of card colors they'll give you, especially in
like
sports games.
The Ultimate Team games.
Ultimate Team's version, EA is the worst for this, 2K is bad for this.
The bronze of the wizard version of Joel Embiid, which
that's what we were talking about. And so you have to buy the pack because you can't buy the player because I do like that part of it where you can't individually buy the thing because that gives you a competitive advantage.
Right.
So I think it's totally fine. I just wonder have they adjusted their pricing at all? Like, is it?
They definitely have. I mean, keep in mind, Overwatch 2 is going to be free to play.
Right.
And you know what they're going to do. They've got like very smart mathematicians on this, making sure that you always have either too much or not quite enough to buy a skin.
Right.
So you need to buy another. I bet you have to buy points that you then use to spend on
virtual currency.
Virtual currency, exactly.
So, but that was so funny. You used to play Overwatch all the time.
Yes.
You didn't have enough coins or you weren't earning enough loot boxes. You had to buy more on top of it?
Eventually, because I switched from console to PC about 2 years in. And eventually I had so many that I had every skin and I had way more than enough currency to buy whatever I wanted. I currently have in Overwatch 196 unopened loot boxes. I just don't care anymore. I've got all the skins that I want. They're not making new skins. They're just doing like the Anniversary Remix. It's like new color variations of past skins that they've done. So it's like, what? But obviously, like there's 3 or 4. There's like a month left before Overwatch 2 comes out. So what are you gonna do?
God help us when that happens. We'll have to do something special for it.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just like your loot box is just like the end of Indiana Jones, where they're just wheeling a box into the back of like a huge warehouse.
Yes, exactly.
I'm sure I'll check on it eventually. No.
So are there any other games you're playing? Because I know that we should announce this officially. We talked about doing a full breakdown of Stray, the video game Stray. That's going to be happening next week for sure. We're going to be doing the breakdown of Stray, a full spoiler cat, as we said. So make sure you've played that if you don't want us to spoil anything for you. It's going to be a fun episode. We've had a lot of people actually requesting that we focus on some more modern games every now and again. So here's your opportunity to do that. Have you played anything else, or are you kind of just
I've played,
making your way through Stray?
I'm nearly finished Stray. And can I say, meow?
Meow.
Yeah. Take that for how you want.
Take that however you think it should mean.
Meow.
Can I say this?
Yeah. Whoa, really, eh? That's interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
I mean, but also...
Oh, yeah? Meow. Oh, wow.
So...
Oh, okay. Interesting. Yeah, very good. Actually, that's closer to how the cat's out.
Yeah.
Weird noises come out of that cat.
But also... Meow.
I'm playing Multiverses.
Oh, you've given that a shot. Amazing.
Speaking of free to play,
yes.
Yeah, no, I've been trying that, and you know what? We did fighting game last week. We did Street Fighter.
Yes.
We're not fighting boys, but if you sell it like we always talk about, this is the Pokemon Snap corollary.
Yes.
You give a nice skin that I'm familiar with, and I feel safe and not challenged. I'm like, yay, this is going to be great. Only problem is you get about 3 to 4 characters off the top that you can play with without, unlocking things or paying or whatever.
Sure.
And so now I'm kind of bored of them, and I'm like, but I'm not unlocking things fast enough.
Yep.
Maybe I suck at that game, which is entirely possible because I suck.
I also think that you're not intended to unlock whatever you want right from the... It's probably going to take time to parcel out some of the unlocks. That makes sense.
Honestly, I just keep thinking about like whatever Comic-Con version of when they explained Multiverses to people. It's like, all your friends are here.
Yes.
Finn and from Adventure Time.
LeBron James.
Arya Stark. Batman. Like it's like
Walter White.
It's like they played jumble. Like they just took names out of a hat and went, okay, I guess Elvis
it's funny
is here.
because a couple weeks ago, you and I were talking about, we're like, we just want one fighting game with all the properties. And this one was right under our nose, obviously, but I almost don't even think, like, this is not quite what I meant. But I like that it's out there. As the more this sort of thing happens, the more reasonable it's going to be to expect a playable version of John Wick in NHL 24 or something like that. Like, who the fuck knows? I don't know. Give me, just go wild with it. Why not? Yes. I like that. I like that a lot.
John Wick's dead dog will be my goaltender.
He'll be the puck I'm using.
But yeah, no, it's actually a listener did tip me off to that, where they were like, hey, Multiverses is literally what you're describing.
Yes, yeah.
And it's like, oh, right. And I'm like, this is also what we say all the time. I was like, why don't they do a remake of that? Why didn't that get a sequel?
And it's already been done, or it's already been announced.
You don't get what you want, man.
Yes, 100%. 100%. We'll see. But what we do want is to focus this week on John Madden Football and the legacy of John Madden Football, because we're getting into it. As you mentioned, it's football season is right around the corner. So let's talk about some corner plays.
Very good. Cornerbacks.
Tight corner. Safety.
Because after one of the football players dies of too many concussions, he goes to the coroner.
So they could analyze his brain.
Donate his brain to science.
Would you do that?
Of course. Okay, it's weird. Okay, I'm glad we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Because I'm absolutely an organ donor. I didn't think twice about it, but some people have real hangups over it. And I don't, to be perfectly honest, don't understand. It's not that I don't sympathize with people. You're allowed to have your own opinions.
Yes.
I just kind of like, what am I going to do with my body afterwards? Who the hell cares?
I'm kind of weird about the idea of being, like, I don't want to be cremated.
What?
That scares me. I don't know why.
You're dead.
I don't know why. It does scare me.
Are you afraid you won't die the whole way and then wake up halfway through?
They're going to bury me with one of those foot pedal bells that they used to do in the old cemeteries. Because what would the coroner do? Just be like, yeah, he's probably dead. Like, not even check their pulse, just smoking a cigarette. Like, bury him now.
Gets there, hears a bell, snips the bell. Anyone hear anything? Nope. I think we're good.
That would be the fact that they invented something to inform passersby of buried living people means it was enough of an issue.
Yeah.
That they had to have a conversation about this.
Well, or it's like a believed issue where like I really don't think he's dead, guys. like whatever. But just can you imagine 2022, you're a jogger running through a cemetery because that's very popular, and you hear a bell go and you're like, that should be a prank they do. That's 100%. An actual good prank.
I was thinking if they still had that, I would like perch up in a tree of a cemetery with a BB gun and just ping bells as people are walking by.
I just imagine that jogger just like ding ding ding. It's like, now I got to deal with this too.
She just looks at his watch. Fucking hell.
Okay,
Jesus
I guess.
Christ.
Give me a shovel. Gotta get this guy out of his casket. Jesus.
The police come. He's just knees deep digging a grave. Like the bell went off.
The bell, and they're like, oh god, they get their shovels out of the trunk. Oh god, this is happening all the time now.
Just blisters on their hands from all the times they have to do this. So I do want to talk a little bit about the story of John Madden Football, and a little bit of a separation, because there were multiple versions of quote unquote John Madden Football on a variety of consoles, some computers. The original release, though, to be clear, was in 1988 on the Apple II. It was eventually ported to the Commodore 64 and 128 and MS-DOS. This one's sometimes called Madden 88 and 89 to differentiate. Nice. Madden 90 and 91 would be the Genesis and SNES releases, respectively, as well, even though that's not what they were actually called. People just had to start calling them different things in order to differentiate between the minor variations in some of the releases. So this game, the original John Madden Football, which kind of stems the rest of the franchise, so I'm going to focus on it a little bit, was based on Stratomatic games. Do you remember those games?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Board games that you could use to essentially play football or baseball, hockey, maybe basketball, I'm not sure. But it was all statistics based.
Yes.
Dice rolls. You'd have cards that would show the stats of each team, and you'd have to factor in those stats against dice rolls to see whether a play would or would not succeed. Yeah. In football, for example, the defense would like guess what you're going to do, and then if you threw to a certain area and they didn't guess you were going to do that, then it would be easier for you to get away with the statistics. Yeah. And that, like,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, basically Dungeons
it really
and Dragons.
is. Like roll a 7 to get the,
exactly. And all very nerdy, equally as nerdy, which is great. Now, the problem with the Stratomatic game...
Wait. No, this is about sports. This isn't nerdy.
Oh, I'm so sorry. No. You're right. That is... And fantasy hockey is nothing like Dungeons and Dragons or fantasy books or anything. It's not nerdy because balls are in play.
Because it's about sports.
It's about sports.
And I'm a jock and I hate the nerds.
I hate the nerds, and I love to watch people play sports.
Exactly, because I'm
cool. Can't do it.
They sucked, and there's nothing in common with us.
That guy's got a knife, a sword in his hands. And this person has a football, the pig skin in his hands. Yeah. This guy's skinning pigs. This guy's tossing pig skin. What are you going to want to do?
Circle of life. That's a circle of life. It really is. It's a tight economy, guys.
Why can't we just shake hands on this?
Why can't we? Because nerds and jocks.
All right. I'd probably crush their hands if I shook their hands, obviously. But first, let me wipe off the Cheeto dust. I gotta,
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew, exactly. Yeah. So a man who's going to feature prominently in us talking, I mentioned him earlier, Trip Hawkins, the eventual founder of Electronic Arts, loved Stratomatic, but knew that there was a barrier to entry because there was a lot of math involved.
Yeah.
And turns out sports fans can't always shake when it comes to the math of things.
Yeah, they're not good at math.
They're not very good at math. So he thought, what if I put this on a computer of some sort and allow it to do all the math in the background? That way I can still simulate a game or play a game without... And it's funny because, like, obviously that's what video games are, but the novelty of that, factoring in actual player stats and that sort of thing, like a Stratomatic, was new. It was new. I mean, and we know that because this was kind of the first time that it was done accurately and properly. He actually made a game on the football simulator for a mini computer at the time, Trip Hawkins did, where he predicted that the Dolphins would beat the Vikings 23-6 in the 1974 Super Bowl. The actual score was 24-7.
Wow.
So this would have been just what a momentous occasion for him, believing he's got, and now we see it, you'll simulate a season of NHL or something like that, and it's nowhere near the results. But like when it is, it's like, okay.
With so much more information.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's
so
really
he kind of lucked out, but whatever happened. That's great. The problem is when it came time for him to make video games, because he founded Electronic Arts, he didn't want to have to pay high licensing fees to Nintendo because they were charging quite a bit for their cartridges. So when the Genesis came out, he actually reverse engineered the console, had his team develop unlicensed games for it, and then went to Sega and said, I made this game. It runs perfectly. I'm going to release it, and I don't owe you anything. Our programmers did this fair and square, so you can sue me, but we came up with the technology fair and square, and we have really good lawyers. So what I'm proposing is we group up, Electronic Arts and Sega, to try to get a market share away from Nintendo in North America. You make me a licensee and you reduce my licensing fees from what would have been about $8 to $10 down to about $2, which over the next 3 years ended up saving them about $35 million.
Wow.
Which is a pretty strong thing. Sega, fearing that he would use this third-party technology and start to sell it to other companies so they could make unlicensed games, said, agreed. Let's do this. Yeah. And the original Madden, the one we're playing today in 1990, was expected to only sell about 75,000 units, ended up selling 400,000. It was one of the first killer apps on the Sega Genesis and did do a lot to dent Nintendo's market share for the home console generation. That, once again, though, is not the original John Madden Football, which came out in 1988. This is sort of a remake or a re-envisioning of it. At the time, when they were originally making the original 1988 version, the famous story is that Trip approached both Joe Montana and Joe Cap to endorse the game rather than before John Madden. The problem was Joe Montana was already making a football game for Atari, and Joe Cap was too much money, so they had to back out of that. Way
to go, Joe Cap.
Way to go, Joe Cap. Yeah, you would have made, well, everyone is subject to make bad opinions, and I was going to talk about this later, but because we're talking about that, after John Madden Football released and it was selling really well, Electronic Arts gave John Madden an opportunity to buy an unlimited number of shares at the IPO of Electronic Arts, and he declined. He didn't get a single one, and he says that was the biggest mistake he's ever made in his life.
Yeah, I don't think his great-grandchildren ever have to work, but still,
true. But now his great-great-great-grandchildren on Mars wouldn't have to work either.
Well, I think about that all the time, especially like famous passings of especially name brand stuff.
Yes.
Like I was thinking of the Foreman Grill. Do you know who they offered to first?
No, who?
Hulk Hogan.
No way.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan, the only mistake he's ever made in his life. That's the only one. Well, that's it.
It's crazy to think about that. Or as we saw in Winning Time as well, Magic Johnson not going with Nike and taking a portion of the shares, which would have made him a multi-billionaire, I think, at this point.
Which he already did anyway too, because he's like a very savvy business person.
Yes.
But he went with Converse, which hilariously then was Nike bought it 20 years later.
So he ended up where he could have been anyway. So
yeah, there you go.
So interesting thing, I mentioned this about the Madden being very particular. They eventually approached him. He agreed to it. They gave him a $100,000 advance, not realizing it was going to be a 3-year process trying to develop this game. Madden had to provide a playbook for the game, like so he provided the 1980s Raiders playbook, and they could use that in the game. Again, this was the first football game that actually incorporated real playbooks, which is pretty cool. Frank Cooney, who was a writer for, I think, the San Francisco Chronicle or Herald, something like that. Yeah, I believe a football writer. Then was signed on to do to assist with the production, and he ended up getting a playbook from every other team.
Wow.
Now, keeping in mind, this is John Madden Football, not John Madden NFL. I don't think they got the license until about 94 or something like that. But they did have teams in the game based on the statistics of like they do in college games or any unlicensed game. I think even Tecmo Bowl would have been kind of the same there. So the do you want to go over some of the teams actually? Because I want to see.
Now I'm very curious.
Okay. So the teams that they've got in this game, you've got Buffalo.
Yep.
You got Miami, New England, Cincinnati, Houston, Pittsburgh, Denver, Kansas City, New York City, the Giants. And you know this because it's all the color orientations from these
double
teams.
Blue,
Philadelphia, where our friends from What the Famicom podcast are from. Go check them out if you haven't already. A great gaming podcast out there. Washington, Chicago, Minnesota, Atlanta, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. So only 16 teams.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's notable omissions.
Yeah, I think they were just struggling so hard fitting the game that they wanted onto a cartridge. And at this point, they just had to get the game out because it was a 3-year development cycle, which people within EA were calling Trip's Folly because... It's very smart. Trip's Folly, as in like trip fall.
Yeah.
Folly as in is a mistake.
Yeah.
But then it ended up being EA's bread and butter. Honestly, it's like it's a great story.
Yeah.
And I don't think you can really look at a guy like Trip and blame him for what EA is doing, because he ended up leaving EA before they really became like the he signed off and went to go work with 3DO.
There's no way that this like 2-room studio that they started in, and I look at this like multi-billion-dollar franchise in 2022 and go like, it's all Trip's fault.
Yes, exactly.
Like,
exactly.
no.
Yeah. No, he just seems like a guy. He was tenacious. He would ride the bus with and take trains with John Madden because John Madden wouldn't fly, and they would discuss the game and discuss what Madden wanted to see in them. So this really was a labor of love, both by Trip and by John Madden.
That's awesome.
And it kind of shows.
Yeah.
Now, when it came to the development on the Sega Genesis, weirdly enough, at this point in time, when it came time to make a port or a version of John Madden Football for the Genesis, EA was busy working on a version of Joe Montana Football for the Sega Genesis. So they actually commissioned the developer Park Place Productions to make the game. Now, Park Place Productions put up more of like a hyper realistic spin on John Madden, because the original idea was complete realism.
Yeah.
But hyper realism is sort of a more like a more intense version of reality, not quite real, a little bit more arcadey, and that seemed to be the balance that needed to be struck. So EA, great idea, Trip Hawkins, great idea, but Park Place Productions was kind of the company, it seems, that put their stamp on it and said, this is the balance between arcade and simulation that people are going to want, and it worked. There's also a great story, if you want to go read about it, about Joe Montana Football, where Sega wanted it to be ready for the Christmas release, and it was just not there. So they said, well, what if we just put Joe Montana's name on a port of John Madden Football? And they're like, no, like that's a no-go.
Wow.
This is a different entity entirely. So pretty interesting there. Now, Andrew, as we mentioned, usually what we do is we play these games that we used to have an experience of. You've got a ton of experience with the John Madden Football franchise or Madden franchise. Did you ever play the Genesis version?
No, I never played this version. I would think I started playing around the PlayStation time.
Yeah.
I would have been 4 at this time, so obviously I didn't play this version when it came out, but I didn't play it on Sega Genesis either.
Did you play any of the 2D versions of Madden?
I believe so.
Okay. I don't think I did. Actually, in fact, I know that I didn't. So I'm curious to go back and see just how much of that simulation feel is there, because I'm assuming that with the rudimentary amount of computation that one of these consoles could have done, or the Apple II could have done, it's not going to feel very much like a simulation at all.
No.
But I've found that I do really like retro sports games. NHL 94 is one of my favorite sports video games of all time. I really liked playing NBA Live 95. I know you didn't quite so much because you lost to me. Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball was a fantastic game. Even though I lost to you, I'm willing to admit that I can still enjoy games when I'm not.
It's not about wins and losses. It's whether the game is good or not. It's how
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, that's what you're saying. Okay,
great. Yeah. So you should really find it in your heart to reconsider NBA Live 95 and the greatness of it.
God, I would not want to play. You could not force me to play that game.
Oh, man. So many people disagree with you. I loved that game. I thought it was really cool. An interesting take on the isometric perspective on the Genesis was fantastic.
You know, when I like a game, we know what I say afterwards. I'm like, that was an interesting take.
Well, stay tuned for Stray.
No previews.
No previews. No
Meow.
previews. No meow. Hubba hubba. What?
Whoa! What is going on with that cat? All right.
So I'm excited though to go back and play, because I think that there's going to be a lot of room for this game to be enjoyable, not as Madden necessarily, but as a retro football game. Now, what scares me is our look back at Tecmo Bowl,
and
which
Sharks.
is one of what's that?
And Sharks.
Oh, Sharks scare me a lot.
Yeah.
Andrew, I don't need you to dox me like this.
No, but I think you made it pretty clear with the Banjo-Kazooie thing that you are not a fan of Sharks.
See, I have a different memory of that incident because it's all been blacked out in my head because it was, I don't even know what word it is.
Because you passed out?
Is that what happened?
I think so. That's really interesting, because if you also listen to Jackcast, another podcast on the Sad Styles Network, your brother, one of the co-hosts on there, loves Shark Week.
He loves Shark Week,
and you're scared of sharks.
I am very scared of sharks.
Wow.
I mean, he tortured me in a variety of ways when I was a kid growing up, so it does not surprise me that something he loves gives me fear.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious, based on our experiences with
Tecmo Bowl. Yeah.
whether or not this is going to hold up. Tecmo Bowl, a game that we've been urged to revisit because people don't think we gave it a fair shake, which I understand. Apparently, it's a much more deep game than we could have realized in the couple hours that you and I played it. We didn't have someone holding our hands to explain all the different rules
like John
and
Madden.
iterations. Like John Madden. That would have been great.
Yeah.
Tecmo for fans. Tecmo Bowl for fans.
Wouldn't that be amazing?
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, I know. We have had a lot of people walk us through that, and I wonder how this game is going to stack up to Tecmo Bowl, because people talk about Tecmo Bowl, and I understand that's more of a standalone game than 30 plus years of John Madden football.
Yes.
So it's a little tough to go like, Madden 90. Oh, yeah, that was like the real one.
Yeah. What is your favorite non-Madden football game?
2K.
Oh, okay, nice.
I love that version with Terrell Owens on the cover from the Eagles. I thought that game was awesome.
Yeah.
And was doing a lot of cool stuff that pushed Madden to have to innovate.
Had to.
And it was great. It was a great game.
And it was on the Dreamcast, which is a fucking amazing console. I love that console so much.
I love the Dreamcast.
I couldn't believe this, by the way, because over on our Patreon, we did a controller tier ranking.
Yes.
We talked about that, where we took modern day controllers, or just a variety of controllers for different consoles, and ranked them from S to D. And the Dreamcast, in my mind, had 2 joysticks, but it turns out it did not have 2 joysticks. Like that really threw me for a loop. It's like
Berenstein Bears situation.
It's definitely a Berenstein Bears situation, a Mandela effect, as they say. Also on our Patreon, though, and this will interest anyone who's interested in this episode specifically, we did a while back the Retrograde Presents Sports Game Showdown, the definitive ranking of I can't remember what it was. It was basically to find out what the best sports game of all time was. And we took 4 quadrants. We did retro arcade games, retro simulation games, current arcade games, and current simulation games. Had them fight against one another in a bracket to determine which game ultimately was the best sports game of all time.
We're not going to say which one won.
We're not going to say which one won.
Because you got to go back and listen.
You got to go back and listen, but you should. You absolutely should. Our Patreon is $5 US per month. We get 2 bonus episodes per month, plus all the gameplay portions of this podcast, which, if you're a member of, you get to go see the video and listen to the audio of it. So if you've done that, great. When we take a break in just a few seconds to play John Madden Football on the Sega Genesis, you get to go over there and watch the gameplay. So if you do that, great. We thank you for the all the support. But if not, then we'll just see you guys on the other side in 2 shakes of John Madden's hutting, crouched little football butt.
I always think about him with eating turkey. Because he always does Thanksgiving and he eats the turducken. The only reason I know what a turducken is because of him. So 2 shakes of the 3 different tails that are inside of a turducken.
Just a reminder that you can now find our gameplay segments where we play through a portion of today's game and provide video commentary while doing it over on our Patreon, patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast. Join the Mushroom Club for $5 US per month for access to all the gameplay, plus 2 to 4 bonus episodes per month where we do things like character drafts, top 10 lists, and even take some suggestions from our community. So show some support to the podcast by joining the Mushroom Club at patreon.com/the Retrograde Podcast for access to bonus content and all of our gameplay segments. We'll see you guys on the other side.
And welcome back. And welcome back to the Retrograde. Bam! Turducken!
There it is. The impression's back.
It is.
You did an impression of someone who's better at football games than me today.
Yeah, I did do an impression of that. It's so true.
And I did an impression of someone who wasn't upset about it.
Yes. The mighty Buffalo Bills beat the Miami Dolphins. We squished the fish 15-10, something like that? Or
no, 15-12.
15-12. You're right.
What a weird score for football.
There were two safeties.
Two safeties.
Oh, man. Yeah, just a natural score. There was a field goal.
There was a field goal. For those of you who... And there was a missed
extra point.
Wow. For those of you who were placing bets like they do in the Super Bowl on the first point being scored as a safety.
Yeah, first score of the game. Yeah.
You just made a lot of money.
You did.
How much money would you make if you bet $5 on that?
So that actually happened in the Super Bowl twice in the last 10 years.
Oh.
And so usually it was like first score of the game, like a safety was like plus 5,000 or something like that. And so people would bet it all the time. Like
just
$10 bet is $500.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, that'd be amazing. Except it started happening. And the sportsbooks are like, okay, no, it's plus 200 now.
Yeah.
And everyone's like,
okay, well, we're not putting $5 on that anymore.
Tom Brady did it. And I know Peyton Manning did it as well because a safety can also be when this is so nerdy, but like if you intentionally ground the ball while you're in the end zone,
right?
That's a safety.
Yes.
Because you can't do that. You'd bail out of your own play.
Right.
And so they did that. And that was the first score of the game. And I remember I was at a party and somebody had that. And it was like, people were like, oh, that was weird. And you're just one guy like, yes!
That's amazing.
And like probably didn't even watch the rest of the game.
I mean, it seems like you know a thing or two about football and sports.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
And if
that's debatable, but yeah.
if you're here for that, if you're enjoying that, maybe you didn't even listen to the Retrograde podcast until you saw John Madden Football, the glory of search engine optimization.
Hey,
Andrew also has another podcast called Losing Money with Andrew Bascom, plus daily picks that he gives away on at LMWAB.
At Losing Money WAB.
Losing Money WAB on all social media.
On all social media, yes. Free daily picks where we lose money on sports gambling. If you like gambling at all, we'll lose money together on it.
Fuck yeah.
That's my promise.
Fuck yeah.
But football is just such a natural segue. I fucking love football, and it was fun playing John Madden Football.
I had a good time.
Yes.
I did. I got to say, first impressions, I enjoyed this more than Tecmo Bowl. And I would say that it's more complicated than Tecmo Bowl. It felt, the first thing we noticed right out of the gate is that it feels like the players are skating on ice.
Yes.
Like NHL 94. They kind of skid around. Like the movement isn't as precise.
It's like they're slipping and sliding.
Right,
You know what I mean?
exactly.
There's a little floatiness to it.
I didn't love that.
No.
Especially because, and I guess that's to simulate the change in momentum, like because they couldn't actually have the animation for like a jerky pivot or something. But it's to say, like, if you do try to change your angle that you're running on, it's going to take you a bit more time. The problem is, and this is just something that takes getting used to. Like I noticed throwing the ball, if you throw, you immediately take over the person who was running. Like you take over. And the number of times I just kept my finger on the joystick wherever my quarterback was running. And when it switches over, now all of a sudden I'm off the line of the pass.
100%.
That was frustrating.
Well, you know what's so funny? Because we played like modern football too, where the quarterback immediately gets out of the pocket, runs out of the pocket almost instantaneously. Yeah. Whereas in the early 90s, you'd sit there and wait for protection and then do it. We are immediately out of the pocket and running. So the problem is when we throw the ball, we're running with our direction, holding down.
Right.
And then all of a sudden the receiver takes over and we're also running that direction.
I didn't even, because I'm so used to the more modern football games that I didn't even think to stay in the pocket. It was like as soon as I get the ball as the quarterback, I'm moving.
Yeah. Well, no, it's like if I was really playing football, I'd be like, they're going to kill me.
I don't trust my blind side.
No. Very good. Sandra Bullock. That was a terrible choice to put her in the game.
Why is she here? Why is she here?
She's a 110-pound Southern woman playing right tackle for me.
People are like, I don't understand how that movie won an Academy Award. She actually played real football in that.
You should have said, Daniel Day-Lewis learns how to sew for Phantom
Thread.
Phantom Thread. She learned how to. She squatted. She did the whole thing.
Yes,
yeah, incredible.
She did. And Hideo Kojima learned how to cut off his own hand in Metal Gear Solid: The Phantom Pain.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
He also stole a baby, strapped it to his chest.
And I'm still looking for that baby. Still want it. Norman Reedus, come at me.
There are so many subtle things in the game that are really good and realistic to football.
Yeah.
And it just, and I think it's maybe just an expectation thing where, John Madden can say whatever he wants, but you boot up the game, you see the graphics, and you're like, okay, this is going to suck.
Oh, did you really think that? No. I didn't when I first saw it.
Well, I just assumed it was going to be very rudimentary.
Yeah.
And just don't expect much. It's going to be very, like binary. It's like 1 0, 1 0. But except there is subtlety in this game. The fact that players can break tackles, the fact that some players are better than others, the fact that the play calls really do, it really does depend on the success of your play is how the defense is called as well.
So those breaking of tackles would have been something taken from the calculations done in the Stratomatic, which is really cool. You have one, like you had a running back, Thurman Thomas. I will never remember his last name.
Thurman Marshall sounds like one of the founding fathers.
Yeah, absolutely. But people don't talk about this. He owned slaves.
No.
Yeah, he did.
Really?
He did. And he wasn't Spanish American.
Oh, really?
Yeah. A lot of people don't realize this. Yeah. What is
Alexander Hamilton?
No, I know Alexander Hamilton is white as Wonder Bread, but what was why can't I think of his name?
What are
the
you
writer
to say?
of Hamilton.
Oh, Lin-Manuel
Miranda. Spanish American?
I believe he's Puerto Rican.
Oh, Puerto Rican. Okay.
I believe. I could be wrong.
So American.
Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
all right,
100%.
Makes sense. But the number of times I've actually had conversations with people who are like thinking that he was reflecting Alexander Hamilton was cast as him because Alexander Hamilton was a person of color or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's
far
happened
from it.
more than once.
They really missed the appeal of an all-black cast
100%.
telling the story of founding fathers.
Yes.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Or a cast of people
It's
of
just
color.
not fair to all the hardworking people in Broadway all the white actors who weren't allowed to have a role in Hamlet. It's just not fair to
terrible.
them. It's not fair to them.
Awesome. Yeah, they had just about 50 years of all white cast.
Just like it's not fair to play a football game against someone who knows the rules of football. I got to say, though, by the end of it, I did start to understand what I was doing when I picked nickel or 4-3 or goal line. You know, I started to understand the differences between the formations, what plays meant what. At first, I legitimately didn't know how to tell what was a running play and what wasn't.
Right.
And then I realized that if it has numbers on it, it means those are the numbers of receivers you'll have. Yeah. Otherwise, you're running your ass home.
I will say they don't make it easy on you, and I kind of appreciate that. They don't really dumb it down for you.
Yeah.
Like it looks like a coach drew the play. Like,
it does. And to be fair, it probably was the case because they got playbooks from these teams.
And so, like, when you look at a running play, it still has all the lines because it's telling you the routes that the receivers are going to run.
Yes.
It's just that ultimately they will not be getting the ball.
Yes.
But it's like kind of just a kind of an interesting way of trickery because the other player can see your screen. And that's why you have to float between three plays going back and forth. It's just assuming you're going to look at each other's screens.
There is a little bit of guarding against the final play that you choose. If I'm watching your screen, I can see that you have chosen like which sort of which formation you've chosen. Yep. And then it shows 3 different plays you can make, very similar to like a regular Madden, except right now I think you can actually hide it. You can go invisible a little bit. So at the final selection of 3 plays, you press A, B, or C on the Genesis controller, and it ends up being one of them. I can't see which one you chose. Yeah. So usually what I would do, just in case you were watching me, because I know you're a little fucking snake, I would choose one that had
in the grass, baby.
both a running play and a throwing play on it, so that you wouldn't ultimately, like if the 3 that are showing up are all running plays, you know I'm doing a running play. If they're all throwing plays, you know I'm doing a throwing play. So I would keep cycling through the plays until I had at least one of each on there.
Yeah, no, 100%.
That was my strategy.
No, I it just keep cycling.
Yeah.
Blindly, just pick one.
Yeah, like Sandra Bullock.
Yeah, 100%.
That was the thing as well, is she went legally blind to play that.
She really?
Yeah, to play that. That's why it's the blind side, yeah.
Wow. She went legally blind. Oh my goodness. What commitment. Real commitment.
And then all of a sudden you got poor old, God, it's not Renee Zellweger who plays Legally Blonde.
Witherspoon.
Well, Reese Witherspoon. Yes, old June Carter Cash herself.
Yes. Do you know she's coming back for Legally Blonde 3? Because we live in an absolute hellscape where there's no original ideas anymore.
When do we get a remake of Bring It On? Not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
Not soon enough.
If there's like an adult cheerleading competition with
100%.
Eliza Dushku and who's the star of that again?
Kirsten Dunst. This is so funny. This whole second half, we're supposed to be talking about football. We're trying to remember actors' names.
We're talking about musicals, the Founding Fathers, cheerleading.
Legally Blonde.
I'm glad everyone came for this sports podcast.
So yes. So we've talked about the controls being a little bit finicky.
Yeah.
The actual D-pad controls, joystick controls. We talked about the play selection being a little bit confusing at first. If you've never seen anything, there's no training mode or anything like that. You may have to take a course on Football for Fans by John Madden just to understand what's going on. My biggest gripe with the game is 4x3 screen. Half of it gets taken up by these 3 windows, which show the receivers when you're receiving. Now, interesting, I didn't like this at first, but after the snap, you don't immediately have windows popping up because you could be faking a run or something like that. Yep. You have to press a button to get the windows to show up, to show where each of your 3 potential receivers are. However, when they show up, you cannot see anything beyond the line of scrimmage, essentially. It just takes over. You can see these little boxes. It's a zoomed in image of your receiver with the people around them.
Yeah, like kind of waving, going like, I'm open. You know, which I found a little confusing because sometimes in the box, they look like there's no one around him. And then you throw and you're like, well, there's 3 people there. Like, what the hell is that?
And the fact that you could, like, say your guy starts, so it's A, B, and C. Those are the windows. You press A to throw at the A, B to throw at the B, C to throw at the C. But A may not be on the left side of the field. So unless you really memorize the play, if I press A, I'm just assuming that's the direction of the field that I'm going to throw in.
Yeah.
But sometimes I throw the ball because A's waving, and I realize he's made a cut across the field,
Yes.
and I don't even know where the fuck he is now.
Well, I couldn't even actually make the connection sometimes of looking at the play and then looking at the receivers and then going like, that's A, that's B, that's C. And I couldn't figure out which path that they were going to take sometimes, which is also explains why I didn't pass the ball very well. And I was like, well, I'm running the ball well. Who the hell cares?
Exactly.
Also, before the game, John Madden had told me Buffalo has a strong running game. And I'm like, well, I'm going to probably look at that.
And I had a defensive, a real men defensive line. That's what you said about me.
Real
men defensive line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you also have a great quarterback. You have Dan Marino. And so like.
Should have used that more often.
Yeah, because you were passing it pretty well
I
near
was
the
passing
end.
all right. I was, once I kind of started to get the hang of it. The thing that I never understand about football games is there's like no time, and I guess it's just a football thing in general. There's no time to figure out where you're going to throw the ball.
No,
like
no.
The fact or the idea of visualizing the receivers and where they're going to be running and what the routes are is so much more integral to the gameplay than what I'm able to comprehend at this point, because I just don't have a football brain right now, which is a good thing, I think. If you have a football brain, you got to donate it to science.
You may be dead. Yes, you might be. If you have a football brain, you might be dead.
Tell the truth, or I'll slap you. Is there something there?
Oh, Will Smith. Yeah, he's doing
another concussion. Yeah. I'm gonna make you dedicate your brain to science. Dedicate. This one's dedicated to science.
I'm gonna make sure that Chris Rock donates his brain to science. Come here, smack. Yeah, 100%. Did you believe his apology video?
I didn't even see it.
Good. Then you don't.
But also, what's there to believe? Like, what do you mean that he's?
I think he's really not in a great place.
I think everyone in the world knowing that you're a cuck would really not be good.
No.
But like, that's not even saying it. That's like, she talks about it on her fucking podcast. She slept with her son's friend.
Yeah, not great.
Not great.
Not great, Bob. And and then like, but they also have to deal with all their family issues at that, whatever, the red table or whatever the hell that thing is, like the podcast.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
The fact that they have to do that in public is like a nightmare. People don't even want to deal with their own issues in private. Like getting someone to open up
every
is
day
hard.
is Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah. Oh God.
Turducken dinner.
Bam!
So no, I don't know if I believe him. I just believe, and it's crazy. We talked about this when it first happened, not to relitigate the slap, but how quickly we all wanted this to go away. One of the most amazing things to ever happen.
Incredible. Like the most real moment between celebrities you've ever seen in your life.
And we're like, I'm over it.
I don't know. We get to talk about the slap again. We're doing that the next day.
I know.
Our brains are mush, eh?
It's mush.
Oh,
it's mush. Here's a recommendation, actually.
Please.
I'm listening to a podcast called The Gravy Train. It's about Rob Ford. I mentioned him earlier. The former mayor of Toronto. You would know him because he smoked crack and was talked about on Jimmy Kimmel just about every day.
Yeah, big fat white guy smoked crack.
Big fat white guy smoked crack. And his rise into prominence as the mayor and this and that. It is fantastic. But they talk about how the reason why this was all so amazing was because we hadn't yet come to learn about the 4-hour news cycle. It was still like you talked about things for a day, but he was having he was Trump before Trump.
Well, I was going to say,
that's the craziest thing. And it's like every day there would be a new scandal and he would never own up to it, which meant tomorrow's a new one and 4 hours from now is a new one. It's just fucking crazy. Recommended to go out and listen to The Gravy Train.
Yeah, it's interesting, especially, and not whatever, because he's passed.
Yes.
You can now talk about it with some weird, like, level of distance where you couldn't previously.
Yes.
So yeah,
it's crazy. Speaking of distance, we traveled a long distance with our passes. You more than me. 15-12 was the overall score. There was a moment where I was getting very frustrated because on my running plays, I kept pressing dive. I just kept mixing up what potentially sprint or I remember there was juke, and if I pressed C, there was a little bit of like
a spin button kind of thing.
That's the spin. A is the spin, B is the spin.
Okay.
C, I'm talking Genesis controller.
Okay.
Would have been a little. You just put your head down a little bit. I don't know if you're bracing or going faster or what.
Should have used that better. Maybe
Didn't
it's like
really help me. Your runs were great.
Oh yeah, we were running the ball really well.
Yeah.
Even though your real men defensive line did bullshit.
My real men defensive line was not great. I had the slow safety in the game. Yeah, they did. They had to do real man things like play Stratomatic, not Dungeons and Dragons. What about the music? And because the sound chip of the Genesis is notoriously fantastic, I thought the music was great.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And even all the noises too, like the gun that goes off after the quarters and stuff like that, while startling because somebody brought a handgun to a football game, is like really interesting because you're like, oh yeah, it feels real. The
When
whistle.
did they get rid of the starter pistol?
That's a really good question. When did it go to like beeps and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Like think about like just a foot race.
Yes.
It used to be a starter's guide. Now it's going beep.
Yeah. Probably
Also-
for the best.
Yeah, probably for the best. We don't need a referee going like pulling out of a sheet, like just like bang.
He makes a bad call. Someone comes up to him. The ref just like puts his hand on his holster. Like,
Yeah.
why do you have a holster? The game started hours ago.
Where am I supposed to put my gun? Which is a real thing he gets to say. Because it was like that at like swim meets and stuff too.
Yes. Yeah.
That's indoors. That's just crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
They were blanks, but tell that to Alec Baldwin.
Oh, God.
Any other thoughts before we get into our reviews of John Madden Football?
I will say just, I guess I can explore my thoughts when we kind of give the scores, but just this was just really fun to play. You know, there's a lot of games that we go back to, and I will say I was kind of like, oh crap, this is gonna be bad, I think.
Did you? I had some high expectations for it.
Oh, did you really?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. Because and probably the low expectations helped, but like playing Street Fighter last week and going like, that should be good, and it wasn't.
Yes.
And then going like, okay, so maybe this is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And it's good.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of fun. That's the fun part about going back and playing these games.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was very cumbersome in my mind when we started, just because it's relearning football again. And I find that, after playing a football game for an hour or so, I always pick up on it. But the last time I played a football game was on this podcast. Like, I don't play them very often. So the relearning was a little bit tough, and it felt very unforgiving when you did make mistakes. So it's like, I felt like I could never get any momentum going. But by the end of the game, we're making a couple runs, we're making a couple passes, and it all felt like it was clicking a little bit. I didn't mind the floaty controls quite as much, especially like similar to Ken Griffey Jr. I kept complaining about the game, but ultimately it was me making mistakes of control input, and that was the same case with this. The game felt fair in a way that a lot of games from this era aren't. You and I are both dealing with the same issues. When someone presses a button and brings up all the receivers, we're all dealing with that. It's not one-sided, so it's very hard to complain. It's just this is what we're dealing with now. Do you like it? Yes, great. No, well then that's a you problem, not a game problem.
CG like me. Yeah. Fold.
So let's get into our reviews. Okay, you ready? All right. So as we mentioned earlier, typically what we do is we take a look back at the games that we used to play when we were kids, because we didn't have any experience with this game, John Madden Football, back in the day. We're going to be giving our first 4-point review based on what we think we would have thought about the game had we played it back in the day, around the time of 1990, keeping in mind that we always used to play games a little bit later as well in our childhood. So your review, Andrew, out of 4 bits, based on what you think you would have thought about this game had you played it as a kid.
Well, yeah, no, it's going to be a tough one because so many iterations of this game have improved upon itself year after year, hypothetically.
Right.
But while that's not always true, we think the best version was probably some game in the last 3 years, right? Because the graphics have improved and everything like that. But there's a nostalgic moment to this that is a time capsule. That's a very interesting moment of what people thought about football at the time.
Right.
It also, even without the license, it's pretty one-to-one of like the teams and like, the players and stuff like that. So I think that still kind of works. So I like it, and I had a lot of fun playing it, but also at the time, even the time I was starting to play Madden, like 98 or 99 or something like that, it's like dramatically better at that point. So this is fun, but I don't think nostalgia was something I cared for as a kid.
Were you a huge football fan even back then?
Yeah, I was a football fan since I was a kid.
Because here's the thing to consider is, yes, 98, whenever we were starting, 96, 97, when we're starting to play like the three. I know there was a Madden 64 as well. But before then, you did play games like NHL 94, and it probably would have been around the time of 94. So there foreseeably could have been a point when you played this game that was pre-3D games. Keeping that in mind, that you wouldn't have had the comparison to 3D as well.
Well, yeah, I loved football, and this would have been the best that I had out there. So I think I would have really enjoyed this as a kid, especially if I was playing earlier than the times I started playing Madden. I'm going to give this a 3.5.
Nice.
I loved this game. I loved playing this game. I loved Madden. That makes sense. It's all linear.
It's linear, unlike the routes that I was running. They were all over the fucking place. Well, and I was diving before I had a chance to throw the ball anyway.
If you were just running 4 linear routes on every play, that'd be awful. You'd be a terrible play caller.
Well,
yeah.
May have gotten you, though.
That might be crazy enough to actually work.
Because every time you'd be like, there's no way he does it again.
Exactly. It's kind of like doing like a multiple choice test and every answer's A.
Yeah.
You're like, what can't also be A?
What a torturous thing to do as a teacher.
Yeah, I'd want teachers that did
why
that.
add the element of guessing the mechanics of the test to the test itself?
100%. It's about whether it's the right answer or not.
Exactly.
Not like the mental,
It's really stupid.
Yeah, it's really stupid.
So fuck your teacher.
Yeah, fuck my teacher.
Which
Nope, didn't do. Nope.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, too bad.
Too
Missed
bad.
out.
Too
Yeah.
bad. No high five for you.
Didn't take the bait. Yeah.
The bait. Listen, I'm kind of the same way. I didn't love football as a sport to watch. I played it myself, not like in any large capacity, but like recess football. I loved it. I was wily and skinny, so I could just run in between people, which was great. But I did love also playing video games, and I loved sports games. I loved playing hockey video games before I loved watching hockey.
Sure.
And I did enjoy playing football games, even though it was very limited, and I probably would have been more prone to play something like NFL Blitz as opposed to a 2D version of the game. The problem is I didn't understand football enough to really know what I was doing. It was all a guessing game. And I remember playing one of the NFL Blitz games on the Game Boy Color, I believe, which you lent it to me, and I stole it from you. I never gave it back.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, with interest, it's going to be pretty expensive.
Yeah, my library card is overdue. I would just find a way to find one play that worked and run it every single time. But I still enjoyed doing it, and I liked it as a little break. Would I have found this game to be phenomenal? No, but it would have been a good rental, and I would have enjoyed playing with my friends, figuring it out as we go. I used to play hockey games as well before I knew the rules of hockey and not really understand why the whistle was going. But when I scored, goddamn, that felt good. So when I got a touchdown, goddamn, that would have felt good. I would have rated hockey games before I understood the rules high. So I'm going to rate this also a 3 out of 4.
Oh, wow. You're going 3, eh?
Yeah. I think this was a well-made game, and I think that it was arcadey enough that I would have enjoyed it. The satisfaction, the dopamine release that I used to get as a kid from seeing like a long pass get accepted was just the best feeling in the fucking world.
Yeah. Oh, no, it is. And that touchdown you scored too was like both dramatic and fun because like we met at the goal line. You punched it in, and it was like 10 seconds left to get close. That was like a lot of fun.
That was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that.
So there we go. 6.5 out of in our retro scores. Out of 8 in our retro scores. Let's go to the modern day scores.
And keep in mind, modern day score out of 4 bits. Against the likes, how does this game hold up against the likes of modern games like Stray? What don't no meow multiverses, which I'm surprised John Madden's not a character in that. That's that. Who knows?
Honestly,
don't hold your breath.
Yeah, he's like, here we go, let's go. It's Shaggy. You're gonna be eating a sandwich over there, and then we'd have a turducken and bam.
If LeBron James is in it, there's a possibility Madden could be in it.
Honestly, yes.
Yeah.
It could be Teddy Roosevelt eventually, or cool. Miss Frizzle. Like who knows?
Alexander Hamilton
versus Lin-Manuel Miranda
versus in street clothes Lin-Manuel Miranda.
Just as a person.
He's just throwing pencils at people. Yeah, I like it.
Music notes, I think.
He's writing things down and he's saying, you're about to get fucked. Music notes like Doctor Strange.
Like Doctor Strange.
Madness.
Yes, okay. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so here's the modern day scores. This is where you have like this tough decision in your head of saying like, well, what do I do now with this? Like, this is going to be a small element of a modern day game where they go like, do you remember this game? And that's just like so many, like a grain of sand on a beach of like the memory of the types of the games. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be a little tough, but at the same time, I really enjoy this game. It was very simple, and the simplicity is both a good thing and a bad thing. Yeah. But I don't think you should be knocked too much for it because we go back and play older games all the time, and especially older football games. Sure. And not all of them are great. Yeah. This one was fun, and we had actually fun playing it, so it deserves a good score, even though it can't compete to anything we have these days. I am going to give this a 3 out of 4 because
3, nice.
I just think it's just a lot of fun, and it makes you track the progression of football games as a whole. Yeah, so I think that's totally fair. I think what I like about retro sports games is they're not made anymore. No. So there is something to be said about playing a version of the sport in this kind of retro setting because it doesn't have to be compared one-to-one with modern football games. Yeah. Madden NFL 23 is a wildly different game, or Madden 23 is a wildly different game than this one, obviously. But that can be said to be good and bad. Maybe you like the retro feel. And it turns out I've found in myself, I love retro sports games. However, this isn't the retro football game that I would play in the modern day, because the other side of that is in the modern day, I have the opportunity to go play any retro sports game that I want, any retro football game. And the fact that the screen comes up with those receivers is such a bummer to me. Yeah. The fact that controls aren't really tight is such a bummer to me. I think I'd probably rather go back thinking about this now and play Tecmo Bowl.
I think I'd probably rather go back and play, a version of this that's 3 or 4 years older with the NFL licenses. Like if we're going to say that I have my pick at all retro football games, give me something with the NFL license, even though you're right. You really didn't notice that being missing that much. So with that said, I think there's space for a much higher score for a retro football game, but this was by no means a bad game. I'm giving this one a 2.5 out of 4.
2.5.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So that was 5.5 in our current scores, and that our old scores, that was a 12 out of 16.
Andrew, you are correct.
Yeah, 12, just like your score that you finished with.
True.
Yeah, too bad it wasn't 15 like mine. Okay, so what's up?
Can we cut?
Who you want to cut?
Elliot, can you?
But he's getting ready for the awards ceremony.
Yeah, no, I know. Okay. You gotta stop it.
Stop what?
You stop getting dressed.
Just want to look at you again.
I just want no. The score thing is fine.
Oh, okay.
Elliot, don't put on a stitch more of clothing. I want to look at you.
Oh boy, Mike, you know, you're his boss.
We established in the last episode he has more power in sad styles than me.
That's also true. And in life, he's just more powerful than we are.
Guess what I'm going to do?
What are you going to do?
I'm going to wear the sluttiest outfit. I'm going to bring a fern to the awards show.
Oh wow.
I'm going to hit on him. He's going to jack off right in that fern.
Oh yeah.
Then I'm going straight to the New York Times. And I'm going to take over sad styles, baby.
Bring Elliot down from the inside.
From the inside. Sometimes I want him to bring me out by the inside. You know what I mean?
Jesus, my good God.
You know what? Let's do it. Let's make our way to the...
Sorry, Todd. Sorry for to make you wait, buddy.
Yeah, sorry to make you wait, Todd. Hey, can you snap a picture of Elliot over there? Oh, you could hear We have a hot mic?
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, this should be awkward.
Okay. I was joking.
Yes, we're just joking.
You can't take a joke? That's on you.
Let's go to the award show now.
All right, we'll make our way to the red carpet.
You've been waiting for it all year. The most glamorous award ceremony of the week. Ladies and gentlemen, the Grady's.
Here we are.
Glitz and glamour.
The foliage.
The foliage of all those ferns you brought.
All those ferns.
Oh, God. Todd, thank you very much. Football. Yeah. All right. Elliot.
You're holding a Pikachu like a football because it's Todd Snap.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. Don't get shocked.
I got to protect him. Elliot. We're all good, right?
No, of course. We're good.
Okay,
we're good. He's
all right.
standing next to a pile of clothes because he was going to get dressed. He actually listened to me, but it was a football uniform.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And it looks like inside that helmet, Elliot, you've got an envelope. So why don't you reach into that helmet, grab the envelope, and let us know the awards this game won. Ooh, I'm itchy.
The crickets
there's crickets all over me. Oh, no. Oh, get me some chocolate.
Uh-huh.
Remember how cool... Did you ever have a kid who brought chocolate-covered crickets to school?
No.
No?
Really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it was like the coolest thing in the world. You get them at
it's cool, or it's like, as a kid, I don't know if I would have found it as cool as I do now.
No, it was because it was like, that's gross. But then you'd be like,
kid.
that's tough guy.
Yeah, tough guy.
I know a thing or two about that.
Yeah.
So crickets, that means this did not win any formal awards. It didn't fit into any of the categories, but a game worthy of some commendation.
Yeah.
Acknowledgement. And for that, you and I are being handed some envelopes from Elliot, a custom award here.
Okay, I can do mine first.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go for it.
Thanks, Elliot. Okay, this is getting the Hog Molly Award.
The Hog Molly Award?
It's one of John Madden's favorite expressions, and it's just because it's tough and holds up to the competition.
Oh, wow.
Hog Mollies, baby.
That's very good.
Yeah.
I've got the Blue Gatorade Award.
Oh, yeah?
Because it's good, but not the best.
Okay, quick ranking of
Green. Green is the original Gatorade is the best Gatorade.
No, yellow. You're thinking yellow.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I was like, green apple, like the one that came out 5 years ago?
No.
No, thank you.
No, what's yours?
I like yellow a lot.
Yeah, yellow's the best.
Worst one?
Red, maybe.
1000% it's red.
Yeah. I also don't love orange. But I think the reason for that is because I assumed that orange meant more vitamin C, which meant it will cure my hangover better. So my association with orange is always when I'm hungover.
Yeah, it's amazing that Gatorade is only consumed by 2 people ever. It's people at the height of their thing and the lowest moment of their life. There's no in between. There's no one's like, I'm going to have a Subway sandwich and get a Gatorade. It's like, no, I am nearly on death's bed or I just won the Super Bowl. That's the only 2 things.
Or I just won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Do you ever place bets over at Losing Money WAB on the color of the Gatorade?
1000%. Yes, I've lost more money than I should have on what liquid was going to get dropped onto the coach.
Have you ever gotten it right?
I've gotten it right once. Clear water. Yeah. The thing is, you either kind of think 2 strategies. Either it's like you have to assume most of it's water on the sideline, or you choose the team's color. And so there is kind of like an inverse bet of saying, oh, the Chiefs are going to win. So I think red or, is going to be the color. Yeah.
True. I like that.
The fact you're adding psychology into what a 350-pound sweaty person that's just had can't remember a single thing just grabs and
Meanwhile, the house is just sitting there counting their money. Keep thinking you're smarter than me.
Also, what do you guys think? Heads or tails? 1, 2, 3.
Well, Andrew, that's the award ceremony, but we only have time for one more segment, and that segment is a little something I like to call, and say it with me here. I can't. 3 and 10 says to you might guess the game. That's right, our 310 to Yuma themed segment where we ask our listeners.
Not themed.
It is now. Where we ask our listeners to think up 3 sentences that generically describe the plot of a video game, and we have to try to guess the game based on that. So we had a few more submissions, and you can submit yours if you like this game. And by the way, it turns out a lot of people do, so we're going to make our way through some of these.
More games.
More games. You can submit them over to the Retrograde Podcast at gmail.com or find us on Twitter at Retrograde Pod, at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy. Kind of prefer these be sent to the email so you can kind of hide the answer a little bit.
Yes. So do you know the answer to this one?
I do know the answer to this one because I accidentally looked at it because I didn't see the... So it was too good. The person hid the answer too well, and then I was like, oh, there's no answer to this. And then I looked at the bottom of the email. I was like, right, we asked them to do that. Fuck.
Either hide it 20 spaces down or put in white so you have to highlight it.
Exactly. Okay, so here we go. Sentence number 1.
Okay. Guessing a video game.
And I'm going to be honest here. Sentence number 2 is a bit of a run-on sentence. Okay? A group of elite police officers get chased by dogs and lose. Sentence number 1.
Okay.
Sentence number 2.
Lose.
And lose.
Oh, that's interesting.
Sentence number 2.
Yeah, sentence number 2.
One of the officers is a double agent who attempts to ensure the deaths of his team by means of overgrown predatory animals.
Okay.
Number 3, the events of this game lead to the eventual nuking of a small city in a fictional version of Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I got this one on the 3rd sentence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was, and I was still a bit unclear, but the small town element of it, I was like, I think I got it.
Small town Pennsylvania. Well, that's the one. So they're cops,
I'll
run by dogs.
A group of elite police officers get chased by dogs and lose. One of the police officers is a double agent who attempts to ensure the deaths of his team by means of overgrown predatory animals.
Overgrown predatory animals. What does that mean?
That's very vague.
Okay.
Don't overthink that one, I guess.
Okay.
The events of this game lead to the eventual nuking of a small city in a fictional version of Pennsylvania.
Fictional version of Pennsylvania. Is it a Fallout game? Is it because there's dogs and nuclear?
I see where you're going.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about the dogs part of it. Okay, can I ask this?
Yes.
Have we played the game on the podcast? Or
Not
anything in the franchise?
In the franchise, yes.
Fuck.
Yes.
Oh, that's gonna piss me off more now.
Yeah.
Damn it. Who is this by the way?
This is at Here for Horse Eggs on Twitter. Yeah.
Here for Horse Eggs, guys. Fuck them.
Fuck them. You don't need to say that as often as you do, by the way.
I say it a lot. I really do. Just kind of find myself oh yeah, fuck those guys. Oh, Mikey, I don't know if I'm going to get it.
I fucking love the Horse Eggs guys.
Oh, they're the best. I don't know if I'm going to get it.
Resident Evil 1.
Oh, damn it.
You can see it, right? This is a good one. It's a good one.
That's it's really good.
It is very vague. The overgrown predatory animals, the specification of animals, I take a little exception to.
Yeah.
Because it's kind. I mean, I'm assuming that means zombies as well. But overall, it's doable. I got it, so it's workable. It's
no,
totally
I didn't
workable.
even think about that franchise. That's absolutely it's great. Good job, them. Good job Here for Horse Eggs. It's just. So the whole idea when we talked about this game in the first time was we were going to describe a game that doesn't even sound like the game that it does. If you just take it out of context,
right?
Generically, it's it could be anything, right? And this is a really good example of that. I'm like, Pennsylvania, fuck.
Yeah. The nuking of the small town is eventually, and even then I wasn't 100% sure because I didn't know if it was a fictional version of Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, I know eventually that happens in the Resident Evil universe. So I'm like, Raccoon City, okay, I understand where we're at.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to be. Raccoon City was the one that, maybe they could have said trash or like a small municipality overrun by trash pandas or something like that. It would have been almost too much of a giveaway.
Yeah, I was gonna say no, they did it right because you got it and I didn't. That's like the perfect line.
Yeah, honestly,
you know what I mean?
honestly.
So good job. Thanks for that.
Good job. We've had a few submissions, so we're gonna make our way through those over the next couple of weeks towards the end of the episode. If you have some fun with that, give us your submissions. Also, we did have as we mentioned on the last episode, some questions that have been sent to us as well, which we're going to reserve this space for both questions and 3 send 10 cents to you might guess the game as well. Our 310 to Yuma themed trivia game. Themed trivia game.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Because it's like themed.
It's getting worse somehow.
Themed 10 to Yuma.
Yes, I know. I think everyone doesn't get it.
But we also have some questions, some life questions pertaining to video games. What's it like? You know, we're all retro gamers here. I think most of our demographic are slightly older than they were when they first started playing video games here. Yeah. So we'd like to take some real life examples of questions and we'll answer some of those as well.
100%. You have a conundrum that you need us to answer? We'll help you out.
100%.
With a very, very disappointing and confusing title probably to that segment.
Leave it to me.
Oh, no, we will.
Leave it to me, Ver. To answer your questions.
I can't wait for it to be, leave it to usser. And you're like, I don't even know.
That's good, Andrew.
No, leave it to user?
Leave it to usser.
Leave it to usser. Why?
Where Usher answers your video game questions.
Well, thanks so much for listening. We love every single one of you, and we can't wait to talk to you soon. My name is Andrew Baskman. With me, as always, is the bad boy of podcasting, Mr. Bebop himself,
Mikey Aaronworth.
This is the Retrograde Podcast.
Game over. And here's my elbow.
Go Bills.
Want more Retrograde in your life? You can visit our website for show notes at theretrogradepod.com. Follow us on Twitter at Retrograde Mikey, at Retrograde Andy, and the podcast at Retrograde Pod.
Or Instagram at The Retrograde Podcast.
For bonus episodes, check us out at patreon.com/The Retrograde Podcast.
Send your questions and business inquiries to theretrogradepodcast@gmail.com.
See you next week, D-pads.
Furnished by Sad Styles Productions.
Crouched little football butt.